is because the use of the political channel for deciding issues, while it is absolutely inevitable, while you must do it, inevitably tends to strain the social cohesion essential for a stable society. No society can be stable unless there is a basic, unthinking, unquestioning allegiance to certain common principles. You cannot possibly conduct a society, have agreement, unless that basic homogeneity and consensus exists. But every time you have to reach an agreement that requires conformity, when a majority votes and a minority must conform, you strain that social fabric, you strain that cohesion. As a result, the political mechanism does least harm to the stability of a society in those societies that are most homogeneous and that have the closest approach to common values. Government, you can use a political channel, you can use government decision, government-enforced conformity to a far greater extent in a country like Sweden, which has a highly homogeneous population with a very, very common set of values. You can go much farther than you can in a country where there is a wider variety of values, as in the United States. The experience of Great Britain is a dramatic illustration of this phenomenon. At one time, you had a much greater homogeneity of values, much greater cohesion in Britain than you have had in the past 10 or 20 years. And one of the sources of Britain's problems has been the attempt to use political mechanisms in a society that is getting increasingly diverse in its values and its beliefs, and where therefore there is a greater strain imposed upon that society. It's interesting to note that in the past decades we have had a whole spate of regional conflicts develop. The most obvious are the move for autonomy in Quebec in Canada, the move for Scottish and Welsh autonomy in Britain. Why? Because as those countries have tended to come to rely more and more on the political mechanism and less on the market mechanism, they have tended to put greater strain on the things that were holding the society together. After all, so long as you rely on the market mechanism, the people of Quebec could go their way, the people of Ontario, though, their way. When you rely on the political mechanism, you put much greater strain on the relations between the French and English in Quebec, between the French in Quebec and the people in Ontario. Again, if oil in the North Sea is going to be a private matter, it doesn't matter to the Scots whether they are independent of the Great Britain. But if oil is going to be handled by government, then it makes a great deal of difference to the Scots who is in charge of the oil development and exploration. Or come closer to home. Why have we had an expansion in this country of ethnic divisions, of differences among subgroups in the country? We always prided ourselves on being a melting pot. That did not mean that we converted people to identical items, that we made one like another, but that we could live comfortably and conveniently with each group going its own way, with its own customs, and yet cooperating with one another on those areas which were of joint interest. But the more that we have turned to the political mechanism as a way to solve problems, to handle the allocation of resources, the more we have tended both to increase the advantage of ethnic isolation and to increase the frictions among the groups. So, if we are going to maintain a free society, especially in a society in which you have wide differences of customs and values and beliefs, it is essential that you rely as little as possible on the political mechanism and as much as possible on the market mechanism of voluntary cooperation, where each group can go its own way.